We're going to go into base today, into the second chapter of this maamar, but we'll first review and get a bit clearer what we've seen until now.
Did we finish? Did we get all
We didn't, but there's a lot of brackets and ha'aras and things, so we're going to skip the end of Aleph.
So where did we go exactly?
We got till the top of this page that you just got. We got like about 10 lines down. Then there's a bunch of brackets and another thing, and so we're just going to get the idea and then move to base. So, what this maamar has been doing is contrasting Shabbos and Yom Tov, based on the way the Arizal in Kabbalah explains the different energies and atmospheres of Shabbos as opposed to Yom Tov. That Shabbos is Moichin de Abba, and Yom Tov is Moichin de Ema. That's what the Arizal says, which means that Chachma is Meir, it shines on Shabbos, whereas Bina shines on Yom Tov. What's the difference between Chachma and Bina? So we know from several other places, Chachma is the point, Bina is the expansion of the point. Chachma is a flash of insight, Bina is the breaking down of that flash into words, into explanation. But in this maamar, the Alter Rebbe gives a bit of a deeper insight into Chachma and Bina, and tells us that Chachma is Ayin, Bina is Yesh. That Chachma is an experience of nothingness, Bina is an experience of somethingness. Chachma is where the experience is still in a state of Ayin. You're totally bottled, you're nullified. There's no you yet, there's just the idea. And you're in a state of nothingness. Bina is where your you, yourself, starts to assert itself, starts to come into the picture. And so Chachma is an Ayin experience, it's a nothingness experience, it's a bittul experience, whereas Bina is a Yesh experience, where there's more you. I mean, we can appreciate this in the intellectual process of Chachma and Bina. That what is the moment of Chachma? The moment of Chachma is where the idea has landed in your head, but your head is not doing all that much. It's hit you, it's had impact. There's a collision between you and the idea. The idea flashes in your mind, but your mind is in a state of nothingness, of bittul, of reception. It's receiving.
Does that have to come from the outside?
Not necessarily. It can come from you having an idea. When you come up with an idea, so where does the idea come from? It comes from what's called the koyach hamaskil, the power of thought, the power of intellect that you have within yourself. The koyach hamaskil within you comes up with an idea, a flash of an idea. But your conscious mind doesn't yet really know what's going on. The proof of it is, when you have that flash and someone says, what? You say, just a minute. I don't know what yet. I know something, but I don't know what. Well, so who does know? Who's having the idea if it's not you? You're having the idea, but the you is not really there. The idea is there. And you have not yet asserted yourself, introduced yourself into the picture. So therefore, if you have an idea and then someone interrupts you, you can lose the idea. And they say, what was it? I don't know, I lost it. What do you mean you lost it? So who had it if you lost it? You have no recollection, you have no idea what it was. You had this flash where you had the light bulb moment, I've got it, and then it's gone. What was it? No idea. There was something there, it's gone. Because the you wasn't there yet, the idea was there, but you were in a state of ayin, of bittul, of nothingness. Which has to happen. That's the first stage of developing an idea, of receiving an idea, has to be first the idea is there and you're not. You're just feeling the idea flashing in front of you. Bina is then when you introduce self. Your mind, your understanding, you assert, you utilize you, and you start to assimilate the idea into your thought process. Which means at that stage you're a yesh again. You're a self. You found yourself again. And the idea is becoming a part of you. As opposed to you being overwhelmed by the idea, which is chachma, the idea is being enveloped by you. And at that stage the idea becomes more limited, more finite, more defined, describable, relatable. It's becoming packaged in your mind. So you're in a state of yesh now. Your self is there. In Chachma you are an ayin, you're just receiving. In Bina you're the yesh, you're understanding. And now in Bina you can start to explain yourself. You understand it now. There is a price to pay. The idea has to be somewhat watered down and diluted for you to grasp it. So the full power of the idea is no longer there, as it was in Chachma. Because in Bina, as soon as you're putting words to an idea, you're limiting it, defining it, and also you're putting it into your words, into your understanding. So the idea in Chachma is unlimited in a way. In Bina, it's limited to your understanding. But that's an internal process. Like you're now internalizing it. It's not just a flash. It's something that's coming down to you. So in Chachma, the energy is much greater. The drama is much more. The impact is much more powerful. But it's not really yours. In Bina, it's yours. It is yours. It's less dramatic now. But there's a certain joy, simcha, that comes in Bina that is not in Chachma. Chachma is a very deep pleasure, but it's also a bit frustrating because you got the idea, but you haven't got it. You're not settled. You're not.
So where is the line? Where is the line
between Chachma and Bina? There's not really. They constantly. And we'll see later in the maamar, they constantly interchange and interact. So Chachma is a pleasure, but it's not as satisfying as Bina. Bina is much more of a joy, of a pleasure, because Bina is where you really get it. When you've really understood something, when you've really grasped it, there's more pleasure. There's a drama about Chachma, but the pleasure of Chachma is revealed in Bina. And so that's
as joy.
Yes. So that's why Chachma is associated with Eineg or Tainug, which means pleasure, but Bina is with Simcha, which is joy. Because Simcha is the revelation of pleasure. When there is a pleasure and you receive it, you have joy. Chachma is the Tainug, but the experience of the Tainug as joy, as Simcha, comes in Bina. So, Shabbos and Yom Tov are Chachma and Bina. That Shabbos, the revelation on Shabbos, is a level of Chachma, which is a level of Ayin, of complete bittul, and therefore joy is not emphasized. Shabbos is not a mitzvah of Simcha v'samachta b'Shabbatecha. It's b'Chagecha. That Simcha is on Yom Tov, because Shabbos is higher than the joy. It's the source of the joy. It's a state where we're in a state of Ayin, of bittul. And so the joy is not yet revealed. Whereas Yom Tov is where that same concept has come down further. The divine light has come down closer to us in Bina. It's a revelation of Bina, so therefore there's joy on Yom Tov. The divine energy is lower on Yom Tov. That's why the halachas of Yom Tov are more lenient, because it's not as holy as Shabbos. The divine light has come lower, but the simcha is greater because it's become lower, because we can relate to it more. So Yom Tov is a holy day that is closer to our reality, something we can relate to more. Whereas Shabbos is higher than our reality. So therefore Shabbos is a time of rest, which is bittul. It's a time of silence. B'koshi yitiru l'daber b'divrei Torah b'Shabbos. We said that it was a struggle for our sages to allow us to speak divrei Torah on Shabbos.
Say again, please.
B'koshi yitiru l'daber b'divrei Torah. It was a stretch for them. Okay, you can say divrei Torah on Shabbos. Really, we should be silent on Shabbos, because Shabbos is bittul, total silence. Speaking words of Torah is already noise. So of course we're supposed to say words of Torah. Chazal were not discouraging us from saying words of Torah. What they were saying, the point they were saying was that on Shabbos really what's revealed is something that's deeper than speech, deeper than noise. It's silence that's revealed on Shabbos, bittul. Yom Tov is a time of noise, simcha, joy, which is noisy. Whereas Shabbos is a time of silence. Yeah. So this is introducing a very fascinating idea of Chachma and Bina in Avodas Hashem. That there's two levels, there's two ways, there's two approaches in Avodas Hashem. In our spiritual life, there's the chachma and there's the bina. There's the silent and the noisy. There's the ayin and there's the yesh. And they both have a place. There's serving Hashem in a noisy way, and there's serving Hashem in a silent way. Serving Hashem in a silent way means being in a state of bittul, of complete nullification, where you don't matter. Your you, yourself, your issues, that is all put aside, and you have bittul to serve Hashem. What Hashem wants is. And what you are and your personality, that's all nothing. That's all insignificant. It's not a part of the picture. That is serving Hashem on the level of chachma, on the level of bittul, ayin, nothingness. And that's necessary. It's necessary to serve Hashem means to put yourself aside. That's an important fundamental basis of serving Hashem, is that it's about Him, it's not about you. So stop complaining, stop moaning, stop questioning, stop the friction between you and Hashem. Put yourself aside and do what Hashem wants. That's bittul. But there's also a noisy way of serving Hashem. And that is where the self, the yesh, is involved. Where we don't stay silent. We don't shut ourselves up or put our personality aside, but we bring our personality with our questions and our issues into the avodas Hashem. And there is a certain tension. There's noise. Where we ask questions and we struggle and we try and refine ourselves and change ourselves and bring ourselves up to a higher level. Not put ourselves aside, but bring ourselves along on the ride. And that's going to be noisy. Because yesh, connecting with Hashem, there's going to be somewhat of a friction. When you're ayin, when you're a nothingness, there's no friction between you and Hashem. That's complete bittul. That's fine. You're silent. But when you're a yesh, when you're a self, and the self is trying to serve Hashem, then there's going to be friction, noise, drama, emotion. It's going to be a different type of relationship, and that's also necessary. It's not enough to just have bittul, to just have the ayin. It's not enough. There also has to be the yesh in avodas Hashem. Why? Why do you need that? If you've got bittul, if you're an ayin, just putting yourself aside to serve Hashem, what could be better than that? Why should you bring your issues and questions and self and ego, your yesh into it?
Obviously the Eibusher created the world because that's what He wanted. He could have left us a bunch of neshamas to serve Hashem. We're all as bubbled within neshamas. Right.
But maybe we're here to overcome our yesh, to be mavatal and to become an ayin. Maybe that's why the body and the physical issues and personality issues and everything that is our yesh, maybe it's there to avoid. But again, that wouldn't justify it enough. Hashem wants to be in tachtonim. Dir b'tachtonim doesn't mean that we should escape the lowly world to make a world a home for Hashem. It means that we should make the lowly world into a home for Hashem. That means the yesh has to come along to connect to Hashem. Your yesh, yourself. And that means you with your personality and your baggage and issues and all of that has to come into the avodas Hashem. So it's not enough to have bittul where you're an ayin and you put yourself aside. That's necessary, that's a part of it, that's an ingredient. But there's another side to avodas Hashem, and that is the yesh part, where you are involved. And that's going to be noisy, there's going to be friction, it's also going to be exciting. Joy, simcha. What's simcha? It's you being happy. Why is that important? Who cares about your happiness? Isn't it about avodas Hashem? No, it is about you being happy. Means that you have internalized avodas Hashem. It's become a part of you. It's in your world. That's also central to the whole enterprise of Yiddishkeit, of Torah, that the self should be involved.
In a way, it's easier to serve Hashem on a chachma level. Serving Hashem on a bina level is more work. Serving Hashem on a chachma level you can do without thinking about it. It's like if you can't manage the bina level, you can fall back and serve Hashem on a chachma level. That's
in some ways
counterintuitive.
In some ways, there's milus in both ways.
I'm just saying, yeah, but why is it that you can, when you can't manage one and you fall back on like, okay, your backup plan, that is a higher level. That's counter.
Are you saying that should be
No,
lower?
in some ways,
Yeah.
the chachma is much higher. Complete
Right.
bittul to Hashem.
So what I'm saying is, if someone is trying to, get excited and get their, care about stuff, do things in a way that they appreciate and they understand and whatever, then that's great. And if they just say like, I can't deal, I don't have time for this, this is a mitzvah, I gotta do it, I'm doing it. So
Sometimes it's that way, but sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's that I can't just do the mitzvah. I need some inspiration. I need to be explained. So on a lower level, you need to be explained what the mitzvah is. You need to be inspired and moved to do the mitzvah. That's a lower level. On a high level, just do it without, but sometimes you can't get there. It can be either way. Each one has a mile and a higher or lower, it could be either way.
The mitzvahs mostly we do just in the level of Chachma, but the governing avoda, you really want to understand what he's saying.
Yeah,
That's
correct. Correct. So Shabbos represents complete bittul ayin, where you put yourself aside. There's a divine revelation that comes down and you just stay out of the way. Yom Tov represents bina, where the divine revelation is assimilated and absorbed by you. You experience it much more. So that's what the Arizal meant, that Shabbos is Chachma, Abba, and Yom Tov is Bina. It's the noisy of Avodas Hashem, the one where there's pleasure, there's enjoyment.
where did we say that it's from the Arizal?
At the beginning of the maamar, the Alter Rebbe quoted. Yeah. Now we're going to go into base on the bottom of the page on the right. V'zeu ushmartem es Shabbos ki kodeshi. This explains to us a pasuk that says about Shabbos, you should keep Shabbos ki kodeshi, because it is holy. Ki kodeshi hi ba'atzma hi bechinas kodesh ha'elyon bechinas chachma moichen da abba shem izgala b'Shabbos. What this pasuk is saying, keep Shabbos because it's holy. It doesn't say that Shabbos is holy because you keep it. This pasuk. There are other pasukim that say that you should make Shabbos holy, make it into a holy day. This Shabbos says, keep Shabbos because it is holy. It's already holy, that's why you have to keep it. But what does holy mean? So Kodesh, the Alter Rebbe says, Kodesh means that Shabbos is a revelation of Kodesh Elyon, of the holiness of above, which is another word for Chachma. The word Kodesh, which we translate as holy, means something that is beyond, something aloof, something above, something removed. Like a holy object is something that is in a category of its own. It's untouchable. So Kodesh refers to Chachma, which is the level that is beyond. Not Bina, that is internal, but Chachma, that is higher, that is beyond. Ushmartem es Shabbos ki Kodeshi. Keep Shabbos because it is Kodesh. What is Shabbos? It is Kodesh, the level of Kodesh coming down into this world. A revelation of Chachma, of Abba. Masha'inkin Yom Tov nikra Mikra Kodesh. But the Torah doesn't call Yom Tov Kodesh, it calls Yom Tov Mikra Kodesh. And we say it in Kiddush and in Davening that Mikra Kodesh, that Yom Tov is a Mikra Kodesh. What does Mikra Kodesh mean? So it's one of those phrases that's translated very awkwardly in English. A holy convocation. I don't know, do you go on convocations often? What is a convocation?
Declaration.
Yeah, Mikra means to call out. It's something that's called out as holy.
So it wasn't
It's an awkward
you made
phrase.
it holy by calling it.
So it's not Kodesh, it's Mikra Kodesh. So says the Alter Rebbe, what does that mean? It means Ha'ara ba'alma m'Kodesh Elyon. Yom Tov is just a Ha'ara, a ray of the Kodesh Elyon. Shabbos is Kodesh He. It is the Kodesh Elyon coming down. Whereas Yom Tov is Mikra Kodesh, it's a drawing down, a calling out of Kodesh. An extension of Kodesh, not Kodesh itself. Just like Bina.
Bina is a ha'ara of Chachma.
Bina is a ha'ara of Chachma. It's where you get a bit of Chachma and absorb it into Bina. So too, Yom Tov is where a bit of Chachma comes down into Bina. It's Mikra Kodesh as opposed to Kodeshi. In Kabbalistic terms, it's Nehi da Abba b'soich moichen da Ema. The lower levels of Abba, Netzach Chod Yesod, enter into the moichen, the brain of Ema, of Bina. And because Kabbalistically it's explained that each sphera relates to the sphera next and below it, but only the lower levels of the higher sphera connect to the higher level of the lower sphera. So Netzach Chod Yesod enter into Chachma Bina Das of the lower.
Why Netzach Yesod? I thought that Malchus was usually the bridge from one level to the next.
Yeah, but there's a direct connection. Malchus is what
Flips along the Netzach Yesod?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It reveals Netzach Chod Yesod. So there's an interlocking of every sphera, like a shtalshelus, like a chain where the top of the bottom is higher than the bottom of the top.
Right, okay,
Right.
got that.
So it's not, a chain doesn't join like that, a chain joins like that. So
Okay.
the higher level of the bottom connects to the lower level of the top, within the lower of the top. So Netzach Chod Yesod is connected to Chacham Bina Das.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's not good here.
שהגם ביונטב בגילוי מויכן דאמה צורך להמשיך מויכן דאבא. So what this means is, hang on a minute, we've just said that Yontav is Mikra Kodesh. We draw down a ha'ara from Kodesh, from Chachma. Okay, until now we've been saying that Yontav is Bina. Now we're saying, yes, but what does that mean? That means it's Mikra Kodesh. There's a drawing down of Chachma into Bina. That on Yontav also, you have to draw down Abba into Ima. The father, Chachma, has to come down into Bina. Because when we talk about Bina as being Yesh, we're not saying that Chas v'Shalom, Bina is something separate, distinct, and disconnected from its source, which is Hashem. We're not saying that the holiness of Yontav is Yesh, like to Ayin, like the physical world is to its source, Yesh Ma'ayin. Elahu HaYesh Nimshach Ma'ayin. We're talking about a Yesh that is an extension of the Ayin. So hang on a minute. To be clear, when until now we've been describing Chachma Bina as Ayin and Yesh. So taking those words at face value, Ayin is nothingness, bittul, nullification to Hashem. What is Yesh? Not nullification to Hashem. Yesh is the opposite of nullification to Hashem. If somebody is called a Yesh, in Hasidic terminology, someone says you're a Yesh. What have you been described as? As an ego, as a blockage, you're in the way. Yeshus is the worst thing, because it's that which blocks bittul. It's the opposite of bittul. So till now we've been speaking about Yontav, about Bina, as Yesh. So the Alter Rebbe says, let's just clarify what we mean by Yesh. There's Yesh all the way down here in the physical world, and then there's Yesh as it is on subtle levels in the Ruchnistic world. We're talking about in the world of Atzilus, the sphere of Bina. The upper levels of the world of Atzilus, there's Chachma and then there's Bina. Compared to Chachma, Bina is Yesh. But what type of a Yesh are we talking about? We're talking about a Yesh that is intimately connected to the Ayin that it comes from. There's a Yesh that has no awareness of where it comes from. That's a Yesh that's in the way. Then there's a Yesh that has an awareness and a consciousness of where it comes from, which is Ayin. And that's the Bina we're talking about here. That's what it means to be a Yesh. Again, when we spoke earlier that in serving Hashem you have to have bittul, but you also have to have Yesh. What are we saying? What do we mean by that? Bittul means where you put yourself aside completely. Yesh means where you completely put yourself in? No. Doesn't mean to be egotistical, to be complete and absolute Yesh. In Avodas Hashem, being a Yesh means that I exist, but I recognize where I come from. I'm in existence, I'm a Yesh. There's me, but the me is totally connected and aligned with the Ayin that brought me about. That's the type of Yesh we're talking about in Avodas Hashem. And that's the type of Yesh that Bina is. Bina is a Yesh that's connected to the Ayin, to Chachma. As the Alter Rebbe now explains, that there's something unique about the Yesh of Bina. On the fifth last line of the page, in the middle of the line, Ki Ayin v'Yesh Chachma Bina, because nothingness and somethingness, which is Chachma and Bina, hem train rein de lo misparshin. It says in the Zohar they are two lovers who never part. meaning, shetamid nimshach bechinas bitul moichin da'aba, lias bechinas moichin da'ema, his galus ataynu. There is a constant revelation of the bittul of moichin da'aba of chachma to create the moichin of ema of bina and reveal the pleasure that was in chachma. Meaning, the Zohar says this statement that chachma and bina, a train rein the lemis barshin, are two lovers that never part. Chachma and bina we've been describing as two very distinct entities. There's a chachma experience, a bina experience. There's the chachma, which is the flash, and bina, which is the bringing it down into words. Chachma is ayin and bina is yesh. But the Zohar says that even though they are two distinct entities, but they never part. You can't have one without the other. They don't work independently, they work together. As soon as there's a chachma, bina starts working. If there is a bina, there must have been a chachma. You can't have one without the other. It doesn't really exist. It can happen that you have a chachma that doesn't make it very far in bina because there was an interruption. But naturally speaking, chachma will never stay a chachma. It'll always start to go into bina. In other words, if you have a flash of insight, you can't hold on to that. You can't just say, I'm just waiting there. It is always, immediately your bina is going to start working to put into words, to bring it down, instantaneously. Chachma and bina always work together. So, bina also will always refer back to the chachma to see if it's staying in line. You had an idea, now you're breaking down the idea. But as you break it down into words, sometimes you could stray from the original idea. So bina refers back to the chachma. What was the idea again? Okay, and to make sure that you're clear.
If it's still there.
Well, you go back to it.
Bina's hanging on to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's always an interaction. They're intermingled, chachma and bina, to a point where you can't really separate them out. They work together. So,
but this is not in the same way that, like, when you count for Saimer and you say tonight is, Vura of Chesed, Chesed of Vura. We're not talking about that sort of scalable story.
No. Because that's a separate thing. But within Chachma, there's Chachma Bina Das. That's also true. Here we're talking about Chachma as a partsuf, as its own identity, and Bina as its own thing, work together. They're lovers that don't separate. So Chachma naturally leads to Bina. Bina naturally is mavatal itself to Chachma. That's its nature.
And only Hashem put the Chachman down here? Or like, if we talk about our level of Chachma Bina, only Hashem puts the Chachman in our brain? Or does it come from down here, or always comes from Hashem?
I mean, you can have an idea. It's not nevuah, that your thought, your idea, but it comes from we said earlier, the koach hamaskil. That's where the spark of chachma comes from. There's an inner power, the potential for ideas that you have in your mind.
So always you have that idea comes from Hashem, really.
Yeah.
If it's
Not all ideas are from Hashem.
Kedusha,
Not all ideas are from Hashem. There are some really bad ideas as well.
no, but if it's from like a holy, like Kedusha, if it's from a holy way. But if it's materialistic, maybe then it's not.
Yeah. So this idea that Chachma and Bina work together is a very interesting thing. Chachma is what takes the snapshot of the idea. Bina is then what breaks it down into words. And it always works together if you're healthy, if you're working well, if you're functioning properly. There is a possibility of somebody who has brain damage, let's say, God forbid, where Chachma and Bina become separated and they're not able to. It was one of the tests that neurologists do on somebody who's, God forbid, had a very bad accident, is they get them to lie down with their eyes closed and they put an object in their hand and they ask them to what is in your hand. So if you, a healthy person, is lying down and someone puts a 20-cent coin in your palm of your hand and you're asked what is in your hand, you'll probably say a 20-cent coin. You'll probably be able to feel by, that's a cold, hard metal object. It's round, and the size of it, and you'll probably figure out it's a 20-cent coin. If not a coin, like let's say you don't, let's say you don't handle money all that much, so you're not sure exactly, but you'll know that it's a coin. And so the Chachma tells you round, cold, hard, metal object. That's the flash. Bina then says putting all that together. If it's round, cold, and hard and metal, that's a coin. It's a 20-cent coin. And so in an instant, without figuring it out, you've said it's a 20-cent coin. If God forbid somebody's brain has been damaged and Chachma and Bina are not working together, so they, when asked what's in the hand, they'll say something round, cold, and hard, and metal. And say, and what is that? And they won't be able to say. It's just round, cold, and hard. Like they won't be able to put together the information to then translate it into understanding, into Bina. That's an extreme case where someone's Chachma and Bina are actually not working together.
But aren't Chachma and Bina and whatever powers of the neshama? So why is it that, clearly that can happen if someone has trouble.
Intellect is also power of the neshama, so is vision. So all that powers are powers of the neshama. But if the keli, the body, is damaged, so then the neshama powers are not able to express.
The Bina translated to...
There's still Chachma Bina going on. Even the fact that you can talk, there's Chachma Bina going on. But there's some division there. But generally speaking, they're trained learning misparshin. In a healthy functioning being, Chachma and Bina have to work together. Immediately work together. Automatically work together. As soon as there's a Chachma, the Bina starts working. So, because that's the case, because there's this dveikus, there's this cleaving together of Chachma and Bina, so Ayin and Yesh, in their source, they're intertwined. The Ayin, the bittul, with the Yesh, the first level of Yesh, which is Bina, that Yesh, the Yesh that is Bina, is a Yesh that is aware of the Ayin that it came from. The Chachma where it came from. It's connected to its source. After many levels of Ishtalshalus, there's another type of Yesh, which is the Yesh that's disconnected from its source, that doesn't feel its source. That's the type of Yesh that we're more familiar with. But in its source, Yesh, what is Yesh? It's a feeling that I exist because Hashem made me exist. Because there's something above me. That's the Bina that we're talking about here. So Yontiv is called Mikra Kodesh. It's a Ha'ara, it's a Ray, it's a calling out, an extension of Kodesh, which is Bittul, which is Chachma. That the experience of Yontiv is not experience of Yesh disconnected from the source. It's a Yesh that knows its source. It's a holy Yesh. Shatainug, the end of the third last line. Shatainug hu gamken mahamshachas earns a baruch hu delis machshava. Loy tainug masagas davar nifred chas v'shalom. The tainug, the pleasure of Yontiv, is a pleasure of grasping Hashem, of grasping what's above us. Not a pleasure of something separate, like a physical pleasure. We're talking about that Hashem has allowed His light to lower itself, to come down, to condescend to us, to the level where we can enjoy it. We can actually have pleasure in it. So there's Hashem's light as it nullifies us, that's Chachma. Then there's Hashem's light as it inspires and it makes us feel good, which is Bina, which is Yontif. So it's not a Yesh experience that's a separate experience. It's not a pleasure that's physical or lowly. It's a pleasure in godliness, in the divine. The lower you go, the more insignificant things become in front of Hashem. And so to experience that, to experience Hashem's light down here with us, there's no greater pleasure than that. We would expect that being down here in this lowly world, to experience Hashem is an impossibility. We can be batal, nullify ourselves to Hashem, but to feel Him, to experience Him, that should be impossible. So when Yontiv comes around and we feel a closeness to Hashem, we feel a delight in the divine, there's no greater simcha than that. There's no greater joy. But the point is, third line, but you have to draw the moichin da abba, the chachma, into this simcha. Gamken. That what is the joy that you're having? The joy you're having is that there's a revelation of Hashem that cannot be grasped. You're grasping Hashem that can't be grasped. You're having an experience of the divine that can't be grasped. When you appreciate that, there's no greater joy than that. Hashem's done the impossible for us. He's made spirituality accessible to us. Like we were discussing, I think it was last week, that when you feel nothing, how good that is in Avodas Hashem, because it means you're really grasping Hashem. Because if you feel something, then it can't be Hashem. But here it's saying that, but then there's another thing. Hashem sometimes lets you feel it. That nothingness, He lets you feel it. So every now and then you have a moment where you feel a joy and a pleasure and a closeness to Hashem, and Hashem's really letting you do that. It is a real thing. There could be no greater simcha than that Hashem has allowed us to feel Him. Me, I'm just a lowly being. I'm a yesh, not a yesh that Bina is, a yesh the normal yesh. And here I'm feeling a closeness to Hashem. I can feel a pleasure, a divine light. So when you sit on the Seder night and you have this amazing glow, like it's real. It's a divine light that is coming down to you. That itself is a major pleasure. It's a pleasure in the connecting to something that you should be bottled. You should be nullified to. After the small print brackets. V'zehu inyan mikra kodesh. So that's the mikra kodesh. Ka'adam shekoder lechaveroi. Mikra means to call out. It's calling out to kodesh. Like when you call a person, when you call out someone, when you call somebody, you call them by their name. And what is a name? A name is not the person. A name is just a label of the person. It's an expression of that person, but it's not themselves. But yet that's what you call. When you call someone, you call them by their name. You don't say you, essence. You say the name. Yeah. Kachu inyan mikra kodesh. So to mikra kodesh, b'chinas shame. It's like calling out Hashem's name. Shurak ha'ara ba'alma b'chinas Abba. There's a ray of Abba that comes down into Bina. There's just a ha'ara, a smidgen, a reflection of the Chachma level that comes down into Bina, but you experience it, you actually get it. Like a name is just an expression, an extension, a ray of a person. So to Yontov is the experience of Mikra Kodesh, of the calling out, the naming of Kodesh that comes down into Bina. As explained in other places, Baruch Shem Kavod Mechusar Le'olam V'od, we praise Hashem's name, the glory of Hashem's name, which is, it's only His name. Or, in many places it explains what the idea of name. So is Yontov higher than Shabbos or lower than Shabbos?
It's lower, but it's more relatable.
Right. It's a lower revelation because Shabbos is Kodesh itself, Chachma itself, whereas Yontov is a Ha'ara, is Mikra Kodesh, just an extension of that. However, but for that very reason, on Yontov our experience is a more elevated experience. On Shabbos it's bittul, whereas on Yontov there's a yesh that experiences a simcha, a joy in closeness to Hashem.
What happens when it's both?
When it's both,
Shabbos happens.
when it's both, it must be both. It's both. Yeah, Shabbos and Yontov is very.
At the same time.
It is a very high thing.
Easier for us too, for the ladies. Now the Alter Rebbe is going to go.
Represents maybe that point in the chain where there's overlap.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. It's Trey Rand Lemus Parshan. Two lovers don't part. Now the Alter Rebbe goes back to Pesach, which we did start with. Till now we've been talking about Yontov in a very general way. All Yontov. Now we're going back to Pesach. We're up to the line V'hinei. The line starts Nehi, abbreviation Nehi, about 9 lines down from the top. Nehi, and then a new sentence. V'hinei ha'ara b'amshacha zu b'Yontov. This ha'ara b'amshacha, this ray of Chachma that enters into Bina, that causes the joy on Yontov, that Mikra Kodesh, who alidei tefillah v'halal. It's drawn down through the davening on Yontov, and the halal we say on Yontov.
That's not encouraging. Could you
We
please
have
tell
to
us
be
and strong
sure.
down by making kugel or something?
No, that's how you internalize it. But the davening and the hallel, that's what draws it down. Achim enom en rak b'Rabbanan, but they are only the Rabbanan. Davening, the formal davening, is a Rabbanan. Hallel is a mitzvah Rabbanan. And so it's drawing down something, but if it's a Rabbanan, it means that it's not as essential. It's not the definition of the yontif. Because umidaraisa nimshich bepesach al deil chilas matzah. There's a daraisa that draws down this ha'ara on Pesach. Pesach, because Pesach is the head of all Yom Tovim. So therefore on Pesach sets the tones for all the Yom Tovim. The Minah Torah, the Torah itself, the Raisa. There's a mitzvah to eat matzah, and the eating matzah on Pesach draws down the ha'ara from Chachma to Bina. Why would eating matzah do that? That's why we do it. But why would matzah draw down the ha'ara of Abba into Bina? What's matzah to do with
It's
that?
nothing and it only becomes something.
Because matzah shu katnas Abba. Because matzah is Abba in its diminutive form, its miniature form. Abba is Chachma. Matzah is Abba in miniature. Ki matzah moichin da Abba. Because matzah, it says in Kabbalah, is moichin da Abba, is Chachma. She'ena tinuk yodei likros Abba ad sheyitum tam daga. Because it says in the Gemara, a child does not have awareness to recognize their parents, to call out their parents and name their parents, until they've eaten wheat. Eating wheat, the stage of a child's development where they're able to eat bread, to eat wheat, that is a stage, once they've done that their mind, their awareness develops to the point where they can name their parents. Children before that, of course, recognize their parents. But to name the parent, to actually give the label and connect the name to the person, that comes when they are able to eat, when they eat wheat.
Sorry, this is a nitpicky question. Is daven specifically wheat or grain?
It's usually wheat. It could be could be any grain. Yeah, if you're celiac or that's right. It doesn't mean you never recognize your parents. So the liyos yedir zubatinoy kunimshach me'mayla min hadas hamusuk. Now, for a child to have awareness, recognition of a parent, that comes from higher than conscious mind. Why? You can't say that the recognition the child has of their parent is with a conscious awareness. The child has no clue what a parent is. The child doesn't know the birds and the bees, doesn't know their genealogy. So when for a child to say, this is my father, this is my mother, do they know what they're saying? Well, no. They don't know the technicalities of what they're saying. But do they not know what they're saying? You can't say that either. This is my father, this is my mother, these are my parents. That statement that these are my parents means something. What does it mean? Not something the child can explain. I'm talking about here about 1.5. When do they start eating grain? 1? Talking about a very young child. When? Before that.
6 months?
Yeah. So we're talking.
Porridge.
Porridge. Yeah, they start very young, younger than 1. So the child has no conscious awareness, understanding what a parent is, what it means that this is my parent. What's the difference between a parent and somebody else? They can't explain it. They don't have a conscious awareness, a conscious understanding of what that is. But at the same time, they have a very deep knowledge. They know this is my parent. They know that it's my parent. They can't explain it. It's not conscious awareness, but it's a powerful and strong awareness. It's a connection.
Don't they say that until around age 2, the child's concept that they're actually a separate entity from their parent is still developing? The newborn has no concept that they're a separate being.
That could be.
You know, that their perception is that when they cry, food is fed.
Yeah.
They have no concept that that's a separate person feeding
Right,
them.
right. So I don't know if this is connected to that. I'm not sure. If that development, there's another person. I don't know.
But anybody can feed them. They go, that's the
Well,
person
that's
or the
right.
mother. They don't really think it.
I was thinking about an adopted kid as well. If I adopt a newborn, they still think that that's their parent, even
Right.
though it's not biological.
Right. Yeah, correct. So what will matter is who's the parent at this juncture.
Who's in the parent role?
Yes,
rather than
that's right.
Anybody who
biology.
feeds the child could be a mother or father.
Correct. And the child is not questioning the biological. It's not a It's not a conscious scientific fact that it's just, this is my father, this is my mother. So what does eating the grain mean? It means that an awareness is developed, but an awareness that cannot be explained. An awareness that's beyond conscious awareness. The child becomes aware, knows it as a fact, it's just a fact, but can't explain it. There's no intelligence behind it, it's beyond intelligence. So that's talking about any grain. V'gam matzah ein batam. But matzah has the additional faculty to it. Not only it's grain, but it has no taste. She'ein ba hagba. It's not lifted and elevated, it has not risen. So
Anytime someone says I shouldn't complain about matzah, I'm going to say even Alter Rebbe says matzah has no taste.
that's right, it's supposed to be. That matzah represents awareness that can't be explained. Has no reasoning. Tam, taste, also means reasoning. There's no reason to the knowledge. It's not a reasoned, thought out process. It's just a fact. So when we're talking about an intellect that is above intellect, that is above awareness, what are we talking about? Abba, chachma. Chachma is the intellectual experience of something beyond intellect. We haven't got it yet. We can't explain it yet. It's not bina that you can define and explain. It's chachma is beyond intellect. Chachma we always describe as being an intellectual faculty. It's the intellectual faculty that is beyond intellect, beyond conscious awareness. Bina is conscious awareness, yesh. Whereas chachma is ayin, which is beyond conscious awareness. Bittul, and that's what matzah is. It's a grain that gives awareness, but awareness that's beyond conscious awareness. But when you eat matzah, you receive this awareness of chachma. Matzah has the power to draw down chachma. You're eating chachma, but in a miniature form. Meaning you're not receiving chachma as it is in chachma, you're receiving a ha'ara, a miniature version of chachma. With this we can understand what the Zohar describes matzah as being the food of emunah. The Zohar says that matzah is food of emunah. You're eating emunah when you eat matzah. Why? Why would matzah be emunah?
Well, emunah is higher than...
What does emunah mean? Emunah means having an awareness that's higher than conscious understanding. Emunah means that you're connected with Hashem, not in a logical, rational way. It's not because it's been proven to you. It's something deeper than logic. Like a child recognizes the parent, we recognize Hashem, but not in a way that's intellectual. It's beyond intellect, but it's in our mind. We're aware of it, but it's something that's higher than our intellect. That's a chachma experience. Emunah is very much connected to chachma. And so matzah is called the food of emunah. Why? Because what are you eating? You're eating Abba. You're eating chachma. You're eating the knowledge that is above understanding. Chachma that is above understanding. Now, let's do a few more lines after the small print brackets. The drawing down of the moichin of Abba of matzah, what we've been describing now, that when you eat matzah, you're eating chachma, is only on the first night of Pesach. But from then onwards, from after the first night of Pesach, even though it still says in the Torah, matzahs should be eaten for all 7 days of Pesach, And what does it mean you have to eat matzah all 7 days? It means take the Abba, the light of Chachma, and bring it into the 7 days, which are the midas, the 7 emotions of Chesed, Gur, Tiferes, Netzach, Yisod, Malchus. Eating matzah for 7 days means take Chachma, Emunah, the connection to Hashem that is beyond rationale and logic, and bring it into your emotions. That you should feel it, that you should actively move. The emunah should be internalized. It should inspire you. It should move you. That's what eating matzah for 7 days means. As it's known that Sfiras Omer, which also starts after the first day of Pesach, that in Sfira, the first week of Sfira, is the 7 Moichin of Abba. Meaning that the Moicha of Chachma is brought into the 7 Midas. The first week of Sfiras Omer is the most important one, because in that week, Abba, Chachma, is brought into the 7 Midas. So even though we're more familiar with the 7 weeks of the Sfira being Chesed, Gur, Tiferes, and each week, one of them in all its details, that's also true. But there's another part of Sfiras Omer. That's the first week of Sfiras Omer, which is Pesach time. That is where the Moichin of Abba is drawn into the emotions. That Emunah should not be something that's removed, Emunah that's deeper than intellect. It should be something that actually affects your emotions. That your excitement, your passion, your awe and fear should all be driven by Emunah.
Are we bypassing Bina and Das? Chachma is going straight into
in this thing, yeah, being brought into emotion.
But Rabbi, once you said the Yom Tov is Bina, so now we're talking the Pesach is Chachma.
It's Chachma being drawn into Bina. It's a hara, it's Moichin in Kapnus. It's a miniature form of Chachma that's brought into Bina.
Oh, I see.
And so, in that way, Chachma, as it's in Bina, is being drawn into the 7 Midas through Das.
Okay, alright. You win.
Now, in a Pesach Mitzrayim, when they were in Mitzrayim, the first Pesach, they only had to eat matzah and no chametz the first day. Like we said at the beginning of this maamar, that when they left Mitzrayim, there was not an Isser chametz for 7 days. It was for 1 day, the day of Yitzis Mitzrayim. Because they had Moshe and Aaron with them. Moshe and Aaron are personifications of Abba. They were 2 people who were walking Chachma. Like you had Chachma walking amongst you. Like it says that the cloud never left the Jewish people as long as Aaron was around, because Aaron represented Chachma, which is higher than Ishtalshalus, which is what the cloud which surrounds represented. The cloud that surrounded the Jewish people was Abba, was the power of Chachma that is beyond, like a cloud, and it was in the merit of Aaron because he was a walking Abba, walking Chachma. As is known that cloud that surrounded the Jewish people through the desert killed all the snakes and scorpions. On a literal level, it means when you're walking in the desert, there's a lot of creatures around that need to be got rid of, and so this got rid of them. On a deeper level, snakes and scorpions represent Klippa, the power of Klippa. One of the ways to destroy the Klippa is to draw down the Makif, the Makif, a light that is so intense that it wipes them out completely. So the light of Chachma that Aaron drew down, which was the cloud, was able to get rid of the snakes and scorpions, all the Klippas in the desert. They could have no connection. They couldn't suckle their energy out of holiness. So in Mitzrayim, when they were leaving Mitzrayim, they had Moshe and Aaron with them, 2 people who were human representations of Chachma, of Abba, of that level. That was the level. Here he proves how Aaron is. Moshe, we understand. Moshe is Moshe, the one who brought down the Torah. So it was enough for them to just eat matzah on the first night of Pesach. Because when you have Moshe and Aaron with you, you have so much Chachma energy around, so for everyone else, just eat matzah one night and you'll connect to it. It was enough. But for the future generations, we need a full week of eating matzah. But really, the technical law is that you have to eat matzah on the first night of Pesach, and for the rest of Pesach you're not allowed to eat chametz. Which means that even though it's great to eat matzah the whole time, but the obligation, the minimum is eating matzah the first night, that draws down Abba, and then just don't eat chametz, because chametz is yesh, but yesh that is separate, that is disconnected from the ayin. And so, as long as you don't eat chametz for the rest of the week, the eating matzah on the first night, the Abba that you've drawn down into the bina will influence the zayin midas, the 7 emotions, and your yesh will be connected to the ayin. If you eat chametz, so then you're connecting to yesh that is disconnected from ayin. That will just ruin the whole thing. So for us, we need a full 7 days, unlike in Mitzrayim, where they only needed 1 day of not eating chametz. Technically, they could have eaten chametz the day after Yetzias Mitzrayim in those times, because they had Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron with them. So Abba was revealed enough. We need a full week detox, where we disconnect from the yesh that is separate, and we connect to the Abba. As long as you don't eat chametz, it's enough. But even today, as far as eating the mochin da Abba, the chachma, the matzah, it's enough on the first night. Because the Torah only made it an obligation to eat matzah on the first night. Why is it enough to eat matzah on the first night? Because the first night represents chesed, the first of the 7 attributes. And it says in the Zohar that the first one goes with all of them. Chesed is an all-permeating sphera, even though it's the first, and then there's Gvura, but it sets the tone for everything that comes after it. Once you've got chesed is the undertone of all the other spheres. So therefore, if you had matzah on the first day of Pesach, which is chesed, you brought the Abba, chachma, into chesed, okay, so then the rest of them will follow. So that's enough. Like it says about the Aaron's cloud, which represented also Chachma, that it did not disappear during the day. Yomam, the day, which day represents Chesed, revelation. As long as it's there, it'll include all the days. So as long as the first day, which is Chesed, you had your matzah, the rest of the days will follow. So where did we get? We've answered a lot of our questions from the beginning. What's the difference between Pesach Mitzrayim and Pesach Doros? That in Mitzrayim they only had to eat matzah on the first night, and the Isur Chametz was only the first day, whereas we can eat we can eat matzah the whole week, but the Isur Chametz is for a whole week. That's because we're having a different experience, both then and now. The idea of Pesach is to draw down Abba, Chachma, which is Emunah, into our emotions. When you had Moshe and Aaron standing in front of you, that was very easy. Eat matzah one day and you're done. Whereas we need a full week of that. But even we only need to eat the matzah on the first night. The chiyuv is to eat it on the first night. That's when eating the matzah on the first night of Pesach, every bite of matzah you eat is nourishing emunah. For the rest of the week, as long as you don't get involved with chametz, which is disconnected yeshus, so then you're fine. Your yesh, bina type of yesh, is connected to chachma, and you're on the right track. All right.
I have a question. Where is the chachma in the name bina?